Are you desiring more out of life? More love, more connection, more experience, just more aliveness? Well, that is your soul calling you, and together we are going to uncover those soul desires and help you bridge the gap between your physical life and your true soul self. Welcome to the Suddenly Spiritual podcast. My name is Emilee. I'm an intuitive, a psychic medium, and someone who recently and very suddenly awakened to spirituality. On this podcast, we are going to talk all about connecting with your soul to live your fullest, most beautiful life. We're going to talk about spirituality from the perspective of the everyday person. It's my goal that you feel seen and supported on this journey of discovering your soul and awakening to the incredible world of spirit. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Suddenly Spiritual podcast. It's me, Emilee, your host, back again for another week of chatting about all things mindset, self-love, spirituality, soul connection, spiritual growth, personal growth, all of the good, gushy, internal stuff that I never for 1 minute thought I'd be here talking to you about, but here I am, led to this place that I never thought I'd be, and I absolutely love it. And I hope that you love our time together too. Getting to chat with you about these spiritual topics is such a highlight for my week, for my day, and I love hearing from you about the impact that these messages are having on your life, on your perspectives, and on your own personal growth. So, if you ever want to share a message with me about how this podcast is impacting you or how one of the messages here really spoke to you, trust me, I would absolutely love it. You could send me a message on Instagram. I'm at Suddenly Spiritual. And while I do not spend a ton of time on Instagram anymore, I do see my messages. So if you send me a message, I will reply, but it may take me a couple days. But I just love hearing that. And I have so much gratitude to those of you who are sharing that with me because I love doing this podcast for me, but it's also really motivating when I hear from you about the impact that it's been having and the positive effect that these thoughts, ideas, and messages from spirit are having on your life. And in that vein, if you have a moment right now or at the end of the podcast, if you could pretty please, in whichever podcast listener you are using, give me a rating or a review for the podcast, I would really appreciate it. It really helps for the podcast to get more reach and it really helps me to grow. So if you are able, if you feel inspired to do so, I would very much appreciate it, and it would really help me with this passion project of mine, sharing the messages that I receive from Spirit and connecting with all of you wonderful people. So, with that, hi, I'm Emilee. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the podcast. If you're here for another episode, another week, thank you so much for tuning back in. And today, what we're talking about is inspired action. And I'm going to explain to you what exactly inspired action is. It's kind of a buzzword. I hear it a lot. And so I want to define it for you, what it actually means. This is from my perspective. I'm sure other people have other definitions. And the reason we're talking about inspired action today is because it's been coming up a lot in the readings that I've been doing for people. Specifically, I'm finding it coming up in terms of people feeling really kind of overwhelmed and confused, deciding where they should go next in their lives. A lot of the readings I've been doing lately have this feeling where their future is very, very open. Like there's a lot of possibilities. There's so many shiny things in front of them. Like if you turn a circle, there's a million potential paths to follow all around them. It's at the start of a new beginning or at the start of a new chapter. They're kind of embarking on what feels like something new. And maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you've reached a new level, a new chapter in your life. You're going through a new transition and you're kind of at the beginning all over again of something new. And while it is so exciting and incredible to be at the beginning because that feeling of potential is just, oh, it just feels so good. It can also be so overwhelming to have all of these choices and all of these potential opportunities and these potential paths in front of you. It can feel really overwhelming and it can feel like, how in the world do I make the right decision? How do I choose where to go next? How do I know what to do? And that feeling of not knowing the right choices can keep people stuck, and it can keep you still. It can get you stuck in your head. And instead of making any movements toward any path or any direction forward, you just stand still. And the longer you stand still in that openness without moving, the more confused that you get, the more overwhelmed that you get. That feeling of infinite potential turns into like this feeling of pressure and doom and like, oh my God, I have to choose now. I'm running out of time. And it gets really panicky and desperate. And I don't want that for you. I'm saying all these things because it's something that I have also experienced. There's a lot of times in my life where I felt like, wow, I could go anywhere. There are so many things that I'm interested in, so many different paths I could dive down, so many things I want to explore, a million ideas floating around in this head. And it is overwhelming because reality is I cannot chase all of them at once. At some point, there has got to be a choice made and a path followed, action to take. And it's really hard to make that choice when the opportunities feel absolutely endless. It's kind of like the dark side of being at the beginning of something and having this incredible potential. The dark side is having to actually make a choice and decide where you're going. And if you don't have that inner confidence and that inner trust that you are going to make a good decision, it can be really, really hard. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about how to make a decision when you feel overwhelmed of all the possibilities in front of you. We're going to talk about how to do it from an inspired place. We'll talk about what inspired action is and how you can start really leaning into that practice of inspired action in your life to move you forward. And whether it's move you forward in a moment where everything feels possible, like these big moments I'm talking about. But I also experience this on a more micro level, and maybe you can relate to this too. But my daily life is very full and very busy. And so when I get an hour to myself, there are many times that I have spent the entire hour jumping from one thing to another so fast that I never get anything done because I cannot commit to doing anything. Instead, I want to do everything, and I'm so overwhelmed by all the possibilities, all the things that I have been waiting to do for when I get 1 hour to myself, that I can't choose just one, and I end up getting nothing done. I either spend the whole time thinking about what I'm going to do and trying to decide, or I spend the whole time jumping between 20 tasks, never making any progress on any of them. So, this feeling of so much openness and so much possibility and having to choose something, it happens on this macro level. And it also happens way down on this micro level in our day to day lives. So that's what we're talking about today. This was a really long introduction to this subject, but I just want to paint the picture for you so that you can see how this relates to your life in the big picture and in the little everyday picture too. So let's dive in. So, the way I want to start is by talking about the feeling of having so many choices on a big, grand scale, like choosing your next career, choosing your next big commitment you're going to make, whether it be pursuing a passion project or I don't know, remodeling your house or whatever, choosing the big thing to do next. And one of the sessions that inspired this topic was I was meeting with a woman and she was talking about how she had these creative interests. And I'd been talking to her about these creative interests in the session. I'd been getting so many messages about this creative, passionate project that she was working on. And at the end of the session, she said, well, yes, I have this passionate project, but I keep thinking that I should instead do this other thing because it would be of so much service to other people. And that stuck out to me so much because what I hear from spirit, the messages that come through are that it's noble and beautiful and amazing to want to serve other people, but we have to serve ourselves first. And when we serve ourselves first, that's when we can be of the most service to others. And it's sort of a flip flopped way to think about it. As she was trying to think of this next big thing to do, she was thinking, what can I do that would be of the most benefit to those around me? How can I make the biggest difference in the world? And that's an incredible, generous way to think, but it's not going to lead you to feeling the type of fulfillment that you can get from following your soul's desire first. And by following your soul desire first, by asking yourself not what's the most impactful thing I can do for the world, but asking yourself what's the most impactful thing I can do for me, and then acting on that, living that out, that is how you will have the biggest impact on the world. You can't choose something outside of yourself to do and expect it to ripple inward and fulfill you. It might make you feel really good, but it's not going to have that deep fulfillment that we're all looking for. Instead, as you choose your next big thing in life, you have to choose it from within, from what fills me up. And you are the center of that ripple, my friend. As you start filling yourself up, you're going to fill up until you're overflowing. That overflow is going to ripple out into the world around you, into the people around you. And that is how you have the positive impact on the world that you want to have. It's by filling yourself up. And I know it's such a backwards way to think about it when you want to be of service to the world, but truly the way you can be of the most service to the world is by filling yourself up first, by serving yourself first. And through serving yourself first, you will impact other people. And I also want to share more specifically, like with this situation, the woman I was doing the reading for had thought, well, I could be the most service to the world by doing this thing where I'm in direct service for someone, like doing spiritual readings or mentorship, a counseling situation, a situation directly serving people. And sometimes we might think that that's the only way we can be of service to the world. But there are so many more ways that we can be of service to the world. And when we sit into our authentic desires, that's where the service is really going to shine through. For example, you can be of service to the world by focusing on your artistic talents, putting those artistic creations into the world, and letting the beauty of them inspire the world around you. And it's not only the beauty of what you create, it'll be the confidence with which you show your items, the skill that you develop, the way that you talk to people, the way that you run the business. There's so many aspects of what you create from your soul that will have a positive impact on those around you. Your impact on the world is not based on how you serve other people. It's based on how you serve yourself and then how you show up in the world as yourself, as this person with an overflowing cup of fulfillment. And that's how you'll have your impact. And I just wanted to start with that because that's really what started inspiring this topic for me, because she was at a point where she could kind of pursue a new path, and she was trying to decide how to be of service to the world when spirit is really guiding us to be of service to ourselves. Number one, first of all, be of service to ourselves. And that is how we are of service to the world. Because when we're in service to ourselves, when we're totally feeling fulfilled as ourselves, that's when we can show up fully to the world. We can shine our pretty little light out into the world. That is when we are magnetizing people to us, when we're inspiring other people, when we're filled up, when we're happy, when we're joyful, when we are that bright light in the world. And oh my gosh, that is what the world needs. The world needs more people who laugh too loud and smile too much, who feel too good about themselves. That's what the world needs. And that's how you will best serve the world. So if you are stuck on deciding what you should do next because you want to have the biggest impact, know that your biggest impact will come from within. You ask, how do I serve myself first? That is your first priority. So that is one aspect that I really wanted to touch on with this. I also want to touch on the fact that when you have all these opportunities in front of you, there is no wrong choice. We can feel like there's so much pressure to choose the exact right thing, but I believe 100% that making a decision is so much better than sitting in confusion, because there's only so far we can go with thinking about something. We can only think it so much. We can only contemplate so much until we have to actually get up and make a choice and take an action. And the way that we are going to find clarity on what we like, what we don't like, is through taking action. Clarity comes from action. It doesn't usually come from just thinking and analyzing and thinking some more, because our brains are pretty incredible. And we can think of 1 million different potential scenarios for every possibility out there. We can picture a lot. We can have the worst case scenario, the best case scenario, and 1,000 things in between that we can think up and think through in our head to try and make the best decision. But not thinking is only going to get us so far before we actually have to do the thing, because we won't find out if we've made the right choice until we make the choice. We cannot know ahead of time. There's just no way to know ahead of time if you're choosing the exact right thing. So take some pressure off. If you're feeling this overwhelm about what to do next, what do I do? What's my purpose? What's my path? Take some pressure off. Step back a little bit and just relax. Know that you can't make a wrong choice, because whatever choice you make, you will either get the outcome that you want or the lesson that you need. Either way, no matter what you choose, you're going to get that soul growth that you need, and you're going to be redirected or given the experience that you need for the growth that your soul came here for. You're going to get what you need no matter what. And the sooner that you make a choice and the sooner that you start moving, the sooner that you start getting that clarity. So I talked about not overthinking, but we also have to do some thinking. So let's talk about the thinking part, because we still have to do some thinking. We just don't want to overthink it. We don't want to get stuck in the thinking only. And so with this thinking about making a decision, thinking about choosing a thing when there's so much in front of us, this is where I want to bring in the concept of inspired action. Because inspired action is your inspired choice. It's the choice that feels inspiring to you? And this comes back to going within. Say that you're looking for a new career and there's a bunch of choices in front of you. There's all kinds of different directions you could go in, different types of careers that you could pursue. One way to approach this is asking, what makes the most money? What should I do? What would I be expected to do? What's the most practical choice? What are the most practical aspects of this new career? That's one way to go about making that decision, and that might work. But the way to go about this decision coming from an inspired action place is to ask yourself internally. We're coming back to that concept of choosing things from the inside rather than choosing them from the outside. We're going back to the concept of internal validation versus external validation, internal decision making versus external pressures and expectations. Inspired action comes from within. And when I first started hearing this concept, inspired action, I thought it meant I had to be in that really inspired state where it's like, aha, I know the answer. I'm so inspired. Everything is magic. And that's kind of what it's saying. But deeper than that, when we talk about inspired action, we're talking about making choices that are in alignment with our spirit, with our soul. That's all it means. It means going inward to make these choices and to do these actions, to choose the action that's next. So, if you have a bunch of opportunities in front of you or a bunch of potential paths in front of you, you can start narrowing it down by saying, this potential path, do I, my soul, me, actually desire to go down this path? Is this in alignment with the goals I have for my life, with the person I am becoming, with my own core values? Is this path in alignment with me? Or is it fulfilling some sort of societal expectation? Is it fulfilling some sort of obligation that I feel to the outside world, to other people's opinions, to outside constructs, to society? If I choose this path, will I be serving the world or will I be serving myself? And you can do both. You can serve yourself and serve the world at the same time. That's kind of what we talked about at the beginning. But the point is, you need to choose something that serves you first, that lights you up. And that is the inspired action, because that is the action that is connected with you, with your soul, with your spirit. And I want to make the distinction about inspired action that it is not frantic action. Sometimes when we feel like there's all these opportunities in front of us, we feel like we have to act fast because we're going to run out of time, or there's so much to do. We have to go fast, 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 or we're going to miss our opportunity. We're going to miss our shot. We have to go right now. And inspired action does not come from this frantic place. It doesn't come from this panicky, fearful, scarcity place. Instead, inspired action comes from the soul. It comes from following your curiosities, following your interests, following your passions, following those little nudges from the universe, the little thoughts you have like, I'm so interested in this. I wonder what it would be like to pursue this. Or, wow, this sounds really exciting to me. Following those little thoughts and those little nudges, those are inspired action. Inspired action is not from feeling frantic or from feeling like you're running out of time or from thinking, okay, if I do this, then I'll be happy. If I do this, then I'll be successful. Those are not inspired action. Inspired action feels like no pressure. It feels like curiosity in action. It feels like following a little butterfly as it flies away and you're just following it along, letting it lead the way. It's funny describing it like this because I feel like that's how I acted as a child. But it's really is maybe a bit childish following that inspired action because it's just following where your heart leads you. It's being soul led, heart led, and that's inspired action. So, this was kind of all over the place, the way that I just presented all of this information. So, I want to wrap it up for you and give you kind of the main points to summarize some of these steps we can take when we're feeling overwhelmed with choices. The first thing we talked about is that you have to serve yourself before you serve other people. And knowing that by serving yourself, by filling your own cup, that will lead to serving other people. That is the path to being impactful in this world. We also talked about the fact that there is no wrong choice. You cannot mess it up. You don't need to worry about making the exact perfect choice because you will not know until you do it. And so when you feel like there's so many choices in front of you, it's important to drop that expectation of perfection and know that you will either get the outcome you want or the lesson that you need, but you're not going to make a wrong choice. Whatever choice you make will still move you forward. We also talked about looking inward to ask yourself, ask your soul, is this right for me? Is this a path I want to go down? Is this a desire coming from me? Or is this an expectation I'm trying to meet from the outside world? And remember, you need to serve yourself first. That's how you're going to make the most authentic, soulful decision for yourself. We talked about inspired action. Inspired action is the opposite of frantic action. Inspired action is making those decisions from our soul. It's connecting with our soul and acting from that place. It's acting from the inside out. And we also touched on the fact that when we are so confused with all these opportunities in front of us, the thing that is going to create the most clarity is taking action. The longer you sit in confusion, the longer you think and try to think of what the right choice is, the more confused you will get. The way to get yourself out of this overwhelm is through action. Action creates clarity because you will either get that outcome that you want or you will learn that that choice is not what you want, but you're not going to learn that. You're not going to find it out until you take the action on it. And so, if you can approach this situation as the opportunity to learn what you want, if you can approach it with curiosity, if you can approach it as a student, many episodes ago, we had an episode where I talked about curiosity and the student mindset. That is the perspective that you should have moving into this time when there's so much possibility in front of you. And that is what is going to help you move forward. Choose a direction. You're never going to be able to choose every single right step. Right is kind of in those bunny ears quotation marks. You're never going to be able to choose every right step so that your path is smooth and easy and you never have any difficulty because that's not the point of life. We're not here to avoid all difficulty. We're not here to never make a difficult decision or a decision, that we say is wrong. We're not here for that. We're here for the growth. We're here for learning. We're here for that soul evolution. And that happens through action. That happens through experience. And it happens through experiencing difficulty and overcoming it. So take some of the pressure off to make the perfect decision. And just know that whatever decision you make is going to lead you to where you are meant to go. Even if you feel like it's taking you so long to get where you think you're meant to go, just trust that this path is still made for you and that those experiences you're having are giving you the soul growth and evolution that you came here for in this lifetime. You are getting what you came here for, the lessons that you need. My friends, I hope that this has been helpful for you. Like I said, I feel like I kind of went all over the place with this. So I hope that you could follow all of my scattered thoughts about this. I hope that there were messages in here that you find really helpful as you move forward and make decisions in your everyday life, whether it be a great big decision because you have all of this openness in front of you, or if it's the day to day decisions when you finally have that hour or 2 hours to yourself and you're like, okay, now what do I do? What's next? I really hope this helps you to find some clarity and to trust yourself. You don't need me to tell you what to choose. You don't need anyone to tell you what to choose because you have the answers within you all the time. It's just learning to trust yourself and to love yourself through those decisions. Okay. I love you so much, and I'll chat with you again next week. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Suddenly Spiritual podcast. I'm so grateful that I get to be part of your journey of spiritual expansion. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would leave a review for me on Apple Podcasts. It's a quick, free, easy way for you to support this podcast, and it helps me reach more people who are looking for support on their spiritual journey. You can find a link to leave a review in the show notes. Thank you so much, and I'll chat with you soon.